You ever wake up to a silence so deep it feels wrong? That was me that morning. A heavy, uneasy stillness that told me before I even opened my eyes. Something was off. When I went to open the front door, the knob didn't move, not even a millimeter. For a second, I thought maybe I'd forgotten my own code or was just losing my mind. Then it hit me like a slap. My lock had been changed overnight while I was asleep inside. Not broken, not jammed, changed. If you've never felt your stomach drop out the bottom, trust me, that'll do it. And right after that fear came a boiling, stupid kind of anger. Who would do that? Who's got the guts or the brain rot to change a man's lock while he's still inside his own house? Didn't take long for my mind to land squarely on one name. Karen. Of course. Queen. Karen. Self-declared dictator of our HOA, patrolling the street with her little clipboard, always finding fault in everything from my mailbox to my excessively green grass. She'd been circling me for months, waiting for a new excuse to tighten her grip. But this was next-level crazy. She'd turned my house into a hostage situation. I just sat there on the stairs, coffee in hand, staring at that stupid, useless doorknob, half laughing because honestly, what else do you do when life gets this nuts? I didn't panic, and I sure didn't call the cops or crawl to the HOA begging for forgiveness. No, this was Karen's first move, and if she thought she was going to checkmate me, she had no idea who she was playing with. I called a locksmith not just to change the lock back, but to build something nobody, not even Karen, could mess with. When I told him what happened, the guy let out a low whistle. "Man, that's illegal as hell," he said. "Exactly, I told him so. Let's go stronger," he asked. "How strong we talkin'?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Give me a steel security door, industrial grade." He laughed, but I wasn't joking. Next thing you know, my house is getting a full-on Fort Knox makeover. Steel-reinforced door, triple bolts, deadlock system, the works. Every clang of metal was another nail in the coffin of Karen's power trip. By the time it was done, my house looked like it belonged in a bank vault. I could almost picture Karen strolling up with her so-called master key, only to find her kingdom had fallen. The thought made me smile so hard I brewed another pot of coffee just to keep celebrating. She wanted control. Well, control was mine now and then some. Didn't even take long for the real test. That evening, just as the sun was going down, there was this angry rattle at my front door. I didn't even have to look. I knew who it was. The knob twisted, yanked, jerked, then a metal clunk, followed by a shriek only Karen could manage. What is this? Why doesn't my key work? She pounded and raged about community standards and property rights shrill enough to wake the dead. I stayed quiet, sipping my coffee behind my brand new steel wall, savoring the irony. She thought she could lock me out, but now she was the one left outside, powerless. I almost choked laughing when she screamed, "You can't just change the locks. That's an HOA violation." Oh, the rich, sweet taste of hypocrisy. After a few more minutes of impotent banging and yelling, she stormed off, no doubt, to plot her next move. I waved at the security camera I'd installed right above the porch, knowing her tantrum was being recorded in full HD. That night, I sat in my living room for the first time in weeks, actually feeling safe, steel door gleaming behind me like a trophy. But if you think Karen was done, yeah, you don't know Karen. The very next HOA meeting, she came in swinging, practically frothing at the mouth. She sat at the head of the folding table papers, stacked up, like she was presiding over the Supreme Court, flanked by her exhausted board members. As soon as they got to new business, she shot her hand up, declared, "We have a serious violation," and jabbed her finger at me like she was pressing a nuclear button. Unauthorized steel door blocking emergency access complete. Disregard for bylaws. You'd think I'd rolled a tank into the front yard. The room stirred. Some folks were annoyed, some curious, but nobody surprised. I just let her rant calmly, sipping my coffee, letting her dig her own hole. When she finally waved the bylaw sheet like a white flag, I leaned forward real calm and said, "Karen, are you saying on record the HOA has a right to access my home whenever it wants?" She sputtered. Of course, in emergencies, I just smiled. Interesting, because last week someone changed my lock without permission, trapped me inside. Pretty dangerous, right? Maybe we should talk about that. You could have heard a pin drop. Karen went beet red. That's irrelevant, she spat. But I didn't let up. The HOA is not above state law. Karen, what you did was a crime. My steel door is just there to stop more crimes. Want me to call the police and clear it all up? Suddenly, the board was fidgeting, and even one quiet guy named Frank piped up. Karen, if his lock was changed without permission, that's serious. She glared at him so hard I thought he might faint. But I had my ace ready, a folder of state statutes, all highlighted and printed. According to the law, I said I can install whatever security I want so long as it's safe. My door is fire code certified and doesn't endanger anyone except maybe your ego. That was it. The board was done. They started flipping through my paperwork, nodding, mumbling. Karen tried one last time. He's undermining the HOA, but she was outnumbered, outgunned, and out of steam. I stood up, packed my things, and gave her one last little smile. You want to fight Karen? I'll see you in court. I've got all the evidence, including your confession about unlimited access to private homes. The gasps around the table were like music. I left, letting the night air wash over me, lighter than I'd felt in months. Now, you'd think that might humble Karen. If anything, it just put more fuel in her tank. She started showing up with her inspection team, a posse of clipboard warriors and bored lackeys demanding entry to my house because, get this, my security door might violate fire code. I just laughed in her face. You want to inspect my home? Lady, you got no legal training, and I'm not letting a bunch of nosy neighbors take photos in my living room. Her minions looked nervous. One even mumbled, maybe we should go. But Karen, oh no, she doubled down. So I hit the button on my new security app, letting the loud clack of the steel lock echo across the porch. Step 1 foot on my property, and I call the cops. I said, phone in hand, camera light blinking. You're all being recorded. Her little army scattered fast, except for one sad sack who probably wished he'd stayed in bed. Did Karen give up? Not a chance. The next morning, I woke to a bright orange fine taped to my door, $500 for unauthorized modifications. I peeled it off, added it to my evidence folder, and sent a cheery email to the entire board, CCing the local attorney and county code enforcement just for good measure. The replies started rolling in from board members, apologetic, nervous backpedaling. Translation: Karen was on her own and they knew it. Then she tried the big guns, brought in the actual county fire safety folks. A white van pulled up. 2 inspectors in hard hats came out, Karen practically skipping behind them. He's got a fortress door. It's a death trap, she shrieked. The inspectors just looked at each other, shrugged, and asked to see the door. I showed them my triple bolt fire certified commercial grade beauty, had all the compliance docs ready. They actually complimented the installation, told Karen, "This is safer than most houses here. Normal isn't against the law, ma'am. If you've never seen a person's soul leave their body, you should have seen Karen's face in that moment." When even that didn't work, she went full nuclear, called the cops, told them I was a danger to the community. The officer barely got out of his cruiser before I handed him my folder, explained the whole saga, showed him my videos. He looked at Karen and said, "Ma'am, changing someone's locks is tampering with private property." I'd tread carefully. Karen clutched her pearls, but the officer wasn't having it. So you can imagine after all that what her final meltdown looked like. Late Thursday night, angry, pounding on my steel door. I checked the camera feed, Karen crowbar in hand, 2 of her loyal followers behind her trying to break in like the world's saddest Ocean's 11. She was cursing, sweating, screaming, "You can't keep me out. This is my neighborhood." The neighbors started gathering, filming, whispering. It was so surreal, I just hit record and calmly called the police, mug of coffee in hand. When the cruiser showed up, lights flashing, officers yelling for her to drop the crowbar, she still tried to argue. "I'm the HOA president." They weren't buying it. She got cuffed right there on my porch. arrested for attempted burglary, destruction of property, trespassing. Her sidekicks tried to claim it was all just an inspection, but nobody was listening. The neighbors filmed it all, and by the next day, Karen was viral, the HOA president who tried to crowbar her way back into control. Within a week, the board removed her. Neighbors who used to avoid me started dropping by to chat, congratulating me for standing my ground. The steel door she hated so much became a monument to her own downfall. Funny thing, people like Karen always think control equals power, but real power is patience. Real power is letting them dig their own grave one petty stunt at a time. So now I sit on my porch at sunset coffee and hand steel doors shining behind me, and I just watch the world spin. Karen's gone. Her empire's dust. I didn't need to shout or rage or stoop to her level. I just stayed steady, kept my receipts, and let her collapse under the weight of her own nonsense. The game's over, and this time the right person won. But let me ask you, since everyone's got an opinion, what's the craziest thing your HOA ever pulled? Or maybe you've faced down a Karen of your own. Drop your story in the comments. Let's hear where you stand on what's right, what's fair, and what community really means. And if you ever feel like giving up the fight, remember sometimes all it takes to win is one good steel door and a little bit of patience.